In this video, we're going to be creating an evil or devil cat with Sketchbook Pro. But in order for you to follow along a little easier and achieve similar results, we're going to use a grid as a guide. The only problem is that Sketchbook Pro doesn't have a feature to create a grid and work from a grid. So we're going to have to use another program to do that, and I think we're going to use Adobe Illustrator. And so let's launch Illustrator here. Okay, Illustrator doesn't really open up that fast. It's just that I edited the transition there. So what I want to do is start a new file. If you're on the Mac, Command N, and if you're on Windows, probably going to be Control N. So here I have my new document dialog panel, and I don't really need to do much in here. I'm going to keep it RGB. None of this stuff really matters. So we're just going to make it 12 by 12 inches, just because I like to work in a somewhat large area, and I'm just going to click OK. Alright, you probably can't see all that because the video is cutting it off. But, I don't like bright white backgrounds because it bothers my eyes. But we're going to change that. We're going to come over to the line segment tool over in the tool panel here, and click and hold on it, and I'm going to scroll down and choose Rectangular Grid tool. So now with that active, I can either drag out the rectangle. That's not what I really want though, so I'm going to double click on here on the tool item, and we're going to set our options for the grid, and I want the grid to be the full 12 by 12 inches. So, and number of dividers I want to be 24, because I want half-inch blocks. So I'm going to go 24 there and 24 there, and everything else is going to be fine, and we will go with that. Of course, now I just need to click once in here and click OK, and now we have our grid. And I'm just going to come up here in the control panel, and you can see that your object will have coordinates. That's if you're even in Illustrator. You don't have to go through this because I'm going to put this grid in the source file folder for you to use. So let's go to X right here and 0 and tab that, and I'm just aligning the grid to the actual document. And now we're over here. I'm going to do the same thing, 0 tab. All right, now I do want the lines to be a little bit dimmer. I don't want them to be solid black because it's going to be too distracting as we actually draw our cat in Sketchbook Pro. What we're going to do is just use this as the bottom layer or the background, and I'm going to draw on top of that. But I want to take that black color right there. I'm going to come over here and go to grayscale, and just take those lines down to maybe something like that. We'll see. It's selected right now, so it's hard to see. Maybe something even dimmer than that. And that might be okay. Now I do want to add a color in here because I don't want to be staring at white. So let's choose the fill here and double click on that. Of course, we're in grayscale. We don't want to be in grayscale. I want to choose maybe, I like blue backgrounds. If you've seen some of my other videos I've done for cartoonsmart.com, you'll know that I either gravitate towards a green or a blue color for many things. So that might be okay. Maybe a little bit too dark. We'll try that. And of course, you want to have your object selected before you do that. Alright, so select the grid, and then I'm just going to use the eyedropper tool right here and just sample that so I have that blue color. Now, of course, I decided to choose that gray, which is not going to show up really well on that blue background, so let's just select the grid once again and select your stroke color here. Maybe something a little darker. Might be too strong. I'm going to zoom in to get a better feel for it. Okay, that's more like it. Let's go back to select the grid once again. Double click on the stroke. See if that works. No, that's not much different, is it? Let's just take this swatch here and just drag it over onto the stroke swatch, and what it does is it just copies that same color over. And I'm going to double click on that and just darken that up a bit. Click away, see if that's good. Maybe just a little bit darker. You know, I think that might work. Alright, let me zoom back out here. And we can get rid of this thing here. And come over to the tool panel and click on the Artboard tool. And just to make sure that the document's artboard goes to the extent of the grid that we just made. And the reason an artboard in Illustrator is important is because when you export something or print something, the boundaries of the image that you export or print are going to be determined by the artboard itself. Okay, so click away from that, and let's go to File, Export, and I'm just going to export it right to the desktop for now. And I want to choose a TIFF because I have it set up so when I have a TIFF file and I open a TIFF file that it opens up in Sketchbook Pro, because TIFF is the file format that Sketchbook Pro uses by default. So we're going to use that, and maybe I'm going to give it a name like grid. For Sketchbook Pro, and I'm going to stick this in your source folder, so you may have already noticed it being there, something that looks like that. So I'm going to export that, and it's going to give you some options. That's if you're following along. You don't have to do this. All right, so high 300. These really don't matter, I don't think. But if you're using a PC, or if you're using Windows, maybe you should choose that. And I really don't know that much about that. So click OK. And it's writing the file. And now we do not need Illustrator any longer for this lesson, if you want to call it a lesson. I call it a follow-along video, I think is probably a better name. So we don't really need to save that. You know, I probably should have, but I didn't. When I work in some of the other programs, like Painter or Photoshop, for instance, there's grid options in those programs. So I'm doing this strictly for Sketchbook. Okay, so what I want to do is just take this file that I made, and if you're on a Mac, you can just drag that onto the icon of the program you want in the dock. And you can't see it because the video is cutting it off, but trust me, this is what's going on. And it opened up Sketchbook Pro, and it opened up that file, and by default put it on the bottom layer or the background layer. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and here in Sketchbook Pro, if you press the spacebar by default, you're going to have this little round widget thing that pops up. And if you mouse over the center here and you drag, it's going to zoom your image in and out. And the outer part is just going to allow you to move your screen around. It doesn't actually move the object, it's just moving your view of that object. Okay, so now I don't want to draw directly on the grid itself. I want to add a new layer. If you have your layers panel open, if not, you go to Window and you'll see a layer editor right here, and just make sure that's checked, and it should be somewhere on your screen. Alrighty, so I'm going to click right here in the layers. I'm going to click on this area right there, and what you have is a little pop-out menu, a circular pop-out menu that you can make different choices. You can choose to hide that layer, duplicate it, add a layer, and of course I don't have a layer to delete at the moment because it is the default background bottom layer, so you can't do that. And I can rename the layer right here. It looks like a choice for adding text, but it's not. It allows you to rename it, and this merges all the layers, and this just merges with the one just below it. And notice the keyboard shortcuts that you may be seeing be slightly different on Windows perhaps. You can lock the layer, and those are the choices you want, but all we really want to do here is just add the layer. And so I'm just going to click right there, let go. The whole time I was holding the mouse button down. So now we have a new layer to work on. Okay, so before we get started drawing the cat, I want to cover a couple of other things that I should have covered in the setup video but failed to. So right down here, this semicircle is called the lagoon, and it has some of the tools that you're going to see in your tool panel up top. This right here is some of your brushes and pencils and pens, eraser and such, and you're going to find those up here in your brush palette anyway. This is just some basic colors. I really don't use it. I use the color picker that you're seeing over to the right side of the screen, which is controlled by that. This is yet more tools that you're going to find up in that tool panel that you're seeing floating up top. So we don't really need this Lagoon too much. However, you have some file management tools right here. Previous image, open a new image, save the image you're working on, create a new, and next image and previous image, or if you've been working in multiple images, you can go back and forth like it was pages in a sketchbook, sort of, if you want to think of it that way. And these two things right here are just undo and redo, and I like to use the keyboard shortcuts, and you could probably see part of that little dialogue thing popping up. Here on the Mac it's Command-Z and Shift-Command-Z. It's probably going to be Control instead of Command on Windows. In the setup video we set up the layer 1 to get started with, and so that is the active layer. You can see how it has a little bit of a bolder blue line going around it. So that is the area that, or the layer that we're drawing in. Alright, so I do want to zoom in a little bit. Actually, we're zoomed in 27.8%. If I hold down the space bar, as we saw in the setup video, we can zoom in, and I want to work probably something about right there. And I do want to stay somewhat in the middle, like about right here. That way we can work outwards with our cat. Okay, now that I have covered those few tidbits here, now we can actually get started. Being that we're not going to actually use the Lagoon, we're going to go ahead and turn it off. So we're going to click on this little thing here and just go down to where it says title bar only and just release over that, and that gets rid of it. It just gives us a little bit more space. It probably wouldn't have gotten in the way, but I really don't like to see it. And we have right here a brush properties widget. When you have a tool selected that you can change the brush size or opacity with, you can do it right from here. Right here, I think the this default pencil doesn't give you the capabilities of adjusting the opacity from here, just the size. So if you drag into the right or the left, it's going to adjust your size. Alright, one thing worth mentioning is I'm using a Wacom tablet. It's an old Intuos 2, and I've had it for like 10 years or something like that, maybe a little more, and it works as good as the day I got it. And if you're not using a drawing tablet, I highly recommend it. Can't stress that enough. So run right out and get one. I think the most affordable consumer version is going to be the Bamboo. Matter of fact, I was just in Best Buy the other day, and they have a variety of them. And they even have some of the more advanced ones, like the Intuos, like I'm using, but probably a little bit expensive, I think. Probably more than you would need, especially if you're just going to be doing some cartooning like I do. You're not going to need a whole lot. The Bamboo probably be fine. Okay, so here I have my grid, and when I draw a cartoon, I don't necessarily have a plan laid out as far as how I'm going to do it. For instance, I don't necessarily build a character from basic shapes like such, and then, like some of the tutorials you may have seen on character development, they start with basic shapes and kind of build from there. I don't really do that. I kind of pick a point of a character, and I just kind of go from there and see what happens. And that's pretty much how I've always done it. So right now I'm going to draw the Devil Cat, and I want to make his head fairly wide because I want to account for having some horns in there. Alright, so I'm going to just start right about here and just kind of draw downward to the right because his head's going to be kind of tilted. That's going to be the top of the head, and from here I'm going to just kind of do like a jaggedy line here, which kind of represents, I guess, fur, if you want, and then maybe again over here, and I'm just kind of coming to a point where I can start the neck. As I'm drawing my cartoons, I do a lot of undoing, and at this point I'm going to actually do some undoing because I didn't really care for how that was turning out. Alright. So I did Control Z to undo and Shift Control Z to go forward once again. And let's see, maybe I'll try that again. Go. Alright. Don't need it to be so tall, really, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Before I had it coming down to about here. And use the grid. If you're following along, use the grid to try to mimic what I'm doing here. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to come out exactly with what I'm coming out with. I'm just kind of funneling the shape down into the neck, and it doesn't have to be perfectly in the center. And that's kind of the beauty of cartoons. You don't have to make everything perfect. So this is the basic head shape here. And let's see what I got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, roughly between 7 and 9 blocks wide. And these are each a ½ inch, and we set our document up to be a 300 dpi. Actually, we didn't set the document up from within Sketchbook here. We created a document from Illustrator, and we opened that, and it took the settings that we exported as, and that's what we have here. Alright, so now we have the basic shape of the head, and right about, see, this would be about halfway. So right about a quarter, maybe half of a half is a quarter. I'm going to maybe just draw a horn. I'm going to curve up, and as I'm coming back down, I want to curve slightly back in and come up to connect to where we started. I use that for teeth, and I use that for horns and claws. So it's a pretty versatile shape as far as that goes. So I'm going to just do that kind of thing right there. So practice a few times maybe to get it right. That's kind of tall, so curve outward like that, and you just kind of curve out again and around. And actually, that's probably not the best one either. All right, and maybe another one right here. I'm just doing the opposite. All right. See how I didn't quite get that? That's okay. Beauty of digital art is that you can redo things over as many times as you like. Alright. Now this right here in my tool panel is the eraser. It's a soft eraser and a hard eraser. If you double click on these tools like any of the others, you're going to be able to determine the opacity of the erasing. The amount erased is what it calls it here. You can adjust the size too. Then when you're done, you can just click on Save. Alright. But amount erased, I'm going to go with that. If you really want a solid erase, then just use that one. So as you can see, it's more of a solid line here. But it's kind of small. You can adjust the eraser with this as well, like so. You can also use the B on the keyboard to adjust it. So just press and hold on the B, and you can adjust that just like that. Just going to erase that line that was inside the horns and switch back over to the pencil. And there is a toggle. If you're going back and forth from like an eraser to a pencil, I do believe was it N? No, there was a keyboard shortcut that allows you to switch back and forth. I forget what it is. So let's take a look here. Let's go to Preferences and General Brush, Display Crosshair, and General. Oh, here we go. Swap between two brushes. S, that's what I was looking for. Swap between two brushes. So the two brushes that you've previously used back to back are going to be toggled by hitting S. I hope I said that right. So if I'm on pencil and I hit S, it's going to toggle back between the pencil and the eraser. And say I switched over to this brush here, which of course I don't want. If I press S, it's going to go back between the eraser and the brush, because the eraser is what I used before I was using the brush. So let's go back over to the pencil now. So now that I've selected pencil, it's going to toggle between the eraser and the pencil. And maybe I'll go right inside here. And maybe some jaggy fur coming up. You could exaggerate that if you wanted to, however you like. I'm going to press S to get to the eraser. Maybe just erase a little bit more of that. S once again. There you go. Okay, now what is the cat missing here? Of course, he's missing some ears. And ears are quite important to the look of a cat. If you don't get it quite right, it might not look like a cat. Let's see, how to describe drawing a cat's ear. If I was to draw like an arrowhead, like an Indian arrowhead, like a fossil kind of thing. It's a terrible arrowhead, Brian, but a cat's ear is kind of, in my opinion, the shape of what an arrowhead would be. So I try to keep that in mind when I'm drawing a cat's ear. So S to get back to my pencil, and you're not going to draw the ears straight up and down. I mean, you could. It might come out alright, but I tend to like to point my ears off to the side a little bit. I have two cats, and I try to observe them and look at them to try to use them as models, I guess, when I draw something. So I observe them a lot and try to remember what I'm seeing. All right, more drawing, less babbling. It would be good, right? All right, so I'm going to draw that arrowhead. And when you're coming back, you don't want to come back too far, otherwise it's not going to look like a cat's ear. You just want to, the point at which it starts getting skinnier, you don't want to go much further than that. So that looks more like a cat's ear than that. And even this might be too big. So I draw things fairly quickly when I actually get going. Alright, so they're kind of pointing off at an angle. I would say 45 degrees, but the head's already at an angle. So, alright, now we have what would represent the cat's ears. I'll switch back over to the eraser. Go for the hard one, actually. And erase that right in there. And erase that part right there. And mind you, the grid is to help you observe the proportions of things. And then right from the center, I'm going to kind of come down closer to the inside of the head, a slight curve. And then when I get to where it would meet the head, I'm going to kind of just jag out like that, back towards the outer part of the head. And the same on this side, right down and jag out like that. And this would represent the inside of the ear right there. And this would be the inside of the ear right there. So I tend to like to draw some hairs, kind of jutting out from the inside. Because cats have lots of ear hair, if you haven't noticed. Ear fur, ear hair, whatever you want to call it. Alright, so we have our devil cat's basic head shape. And remember, the spacebar allows you to move your canvas around and also zoom in and out. Alright, let's see, zoom way out. See how close I am to the middle. Alright, I'm kind of down a little bit low. And it's not going to give me a whole lot of room to finish the cat down here. So let's go up to the toolbar and press on this icon right there. And that's going to allow you to move the object on the particular layer that you're working on. So you can see this widget. Might be a little bit hard to see on that color, but you can scale, rotate, and move. And I just want to move it. So when that move part is highlighted, I'm just going to press and push upward to about there. And we can move the head fairly close to the top because we're not going to be doing a whole lot of drawing above the head. Alright, so we got that, and we can close that tool. If you want it back open, you can press that again, and those little X's right there, close the tool. Same thing with here on the brush properties. You can close it right there, and reopen it with that widget right there. And what does this do? I forget. Oh yeah. This just allows you to do some brush building and editing right in there. What's this again? Oh yeah, that's just brush properties. I had forgotten what they were. My art application of choice is Adobe Illustrator, and I prefer to actually do my sketching in Illustrator. And in the series 6 with 6 Drawing Cats, we are going to do one in Illustrator as well. So let's go back and press the spacebar, excuse me, and zoom right back into where we were, and move it a little bit like so. Okay, so what do we have here? We've got to draw some features on the cat, and remember he's going to be evil, so we kind of want to have that eyebrow thing, or that shape of the eye coming down in the middle to look angry or evil, so we're going to have that kind of shape where the eye's going to be, it looks angry, it looks evil, looks mad. Alright, so I think what I'm going to do is come way out to close to where the ear is, just below the horn, and just come right down there. I think the nose would be fairly in the center. Mind you, you're kind of on an angle here, like that. So at this point, let's try drawing a nose in. Let's draw a little small curve, just a very little, and then kind of bring that to a point, so that nose has a slight curve on top, and come into a point, and that is a decent cat nose. From there, we're just going to mimic that line, but on this side. So we'll come up like that. Go to the eraser and erase any unwanted lines. Back to the pencil, and maybe just kind of fill in some of it, and just kind of leave the top right unfilled to kind of represent a shine. And then maybe from here I'll just draw some browish kind of lines here. I don't really know if cats have eyebrows in the way that we do, but right, he's not coming up too bad. Now we can kind of, from within this curve here and this curve here, starting right about there, not too far, not towards the, not all the way to the end, fairly inside. It's going to give a lid effect. We're going to kind of just draw a curve in and come right to where that top of the nose is, and maybe some contour lines into there, and then back up. Keep in mind that we're at an angle, so we kind of have that going on. So we're going to end right here, start right here, and just kind of, in your peripheral vision, kind of just look at the shape of that eye as you're drawing this one. And come right up to about there. And when I first started drawing this, I really didn't know he was going to come out like this. Alright, now from the bottom of the nose, we're going to draw, I don't know what you call it on a cat, maybe like kind of like their cheek. You know, the part that goes like that, and the part that goes like that. And we're going to make it so he looks like he's smiling a little bit. Okay, we started right about there under the eye, so on this side we're going to end about the same place. And I don't know if I left enough room for the whole entire mouth right here, so let's draw some fangs. A devil cat should have fangs. You know what I just did there at the end of the mouth? I don't know if I want that just yet. Maybe we can draw a bit of a fang right there. Same principle as the horn. You kind of get that shape, that curve, and it curves in. When you get about halfway, you're going to make it rounded, curving back in towards the beginning. And maybe we'll draw the bottom of the mouth, coming right from in between the teeth, and then another contour line underneath that. Maybe some smaller fangs with inside, and that's going to be darkened in. Alright, and now we're going to finish the eyes. So from under the lid, we're not going to draw the whole entire eye showing like that. We're going to maybe just draw a circle, and it's kind of going to be disappearing up under the lid, like so. And then notice the amount of space you have here and the amount of space you have here. Used a little bit more than a third for the eye, or maybe approximately a third. Now, yours is going to come out a little bit different if you're following along, so don't worry about that. I don't think I could recreate this exact cat over again if I wanted to. It would be similar, but it wouldn't be the same, so don't feel bad if it's not coming out exactly like what I have here. See how much I undo things? You know, they get finicky. Alright, so now from here, let's go and just do that once again in the eye, but leave more space on the outer part and draw a really small circle disappearing up under the lid. And then same thing right over here. I don't know, he kind of looks like he's out of it. Maybe that's not the best. Maybe do it on this side as well. Alright, now from in here, you just kind of scribble in, kind of fill the area. Now we can zoom in, and remember you hold the space bar down. I have a bad habit of working far away sometimes, and if you can zoom in and get close to what you're doing, why not? Why not do that? So just fill that in. And then once again over here, you know, I can adjust my brush size. I don't have to be using such a small stroke. Come over here to the brush properties and click inside and just drag to the right a little bit bigger. Apparently 14 points is as big as it's going to let you go. That's okay. We'll make do with what we have. Now there are other versions of Sketchbook. And there's the scaled down version, the Copic version, and I think Copic is just a brand of markers. They try to simulate a brand of markers here in Sketchbook Pro. There must be some sort of partnership going on between that marker company. The Copic or Copic edition of Sketchbook Pro is centered more around the markers. You're not going to have a lot of choices like you would have over here in this brush panel. You might want to take a moment now and look over here in the brush panel or the palette. If you click this little arrow right there, it's going to collapse, and that's your main selection of tools right there. Oh, I probably should mention that this version of Sketchbook is 5.2. So if you don't already have Sketchbook and you want to, I think there's a trial that you can download and try it out. If not, just use the free versions and give those a shot, see if you like them. I like the Sketchbook Pro because it has a lot more tools available to you. This is a Copic edition. I can't remember the other version, but you know, I think this program is what, I don't know, 40, 60 bucks or something like that. Off the top of my head, I don't remember, but if you're gonna use a program like this a lot, it's probably worth it, you know, for the investment. Certainly a little cheaper than Photoshop. If you're just going to be sketching, doodling, and stuff like that, Photoshop is, to be honest with you, way overkill. Way overkill. You know, Photoshop is a very powerful image editing program, and I don't use a fraction of its capabilities. And just my 2 cents. All right, so here's the Copic marker selection right here. And I don't really use them too much. I'm supposed to simulate markers. Of course, I'm using a dark gray, so we're not really going to be, you know, seeing how dynamic they are as far as, you know, the color and blending and such. That's not what this video is about. But just wanted to show you these real quick. And here you have some, what's this one here? Okay, this is kind of an advanced version of that palette right there. And if you double click on any of these tools, you're going to have way more choices in your brush properties, and the video is cutting off most of that. I don't think I can adjust that. Nope. Sorry about that. You can't really see the bottom of that panel due to your lack of panel control here. But most of these tools have way more options than the basic set right up here. So if you have Sketchbook Pro, you might want to give those a gander. And I never say gander. I don't know why I just did. Back to the regular pencil here. Kind of getting off the subject here. Kind of babbling. So we have too much of a devil cat. He's kind of a lethargic. He looks like he's going. Duh. All right. Anyway, we're gonna go with that. I'm not gonna be drawing devil cats all morning, all day here. So sometimes I just kind of go back and just kind of draw some like contour lines. The cat's a furry thing, so you draw some like lines indicating fur. Yeah, kind of a goofy looking devil cat, but we could go back and give him those cat eyes, those triangular eyes, if we wanted to. He doesn't look mean enough. I think that's the problem here. So one thing about doing cartoons is at any point you can go back and just undo what you've done. Alright. So let's go back, and don't get upset that we're doing this. This is a common thing. We're going to make the eyes a little bit more evil. Alright, so that's kind of... There we go. I think that's going to be a little bit better. There we go. That's way better. I'm glad I made that change. And so you see, it's all trial and error. If you don't like something, go back and change it. And that's part of the learning of it. As you go, you learn what works for you and what doesn't. Alright. That is way more evil. That is way more evil. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to undo. Again, not to get rid of it, just to show you the progression of what we just did once again. Of course, you could back up the video and do that. Oh, I think that's as many undos as I'm getting right now. So I'm going to go Shift, Command, or Control Z, depending whether you're on Mac or Windows. And we're just going to go forward again and see what we did. So being that I couldn't undo that all the way, go ahead and back up the video if you like and watch that process over again. Okay, so I'm kind of happy with that. Much happier than what we had. Alright, so now we're going to draw the body. And what I would want to do, he's kind of leaning towards the right side, so his body is going to be kind of coming over to the left. Hence that angle that we had, that slight angle. The body's going to have to be, that's the word I'm looking for, consistent with that, I guess. So let's move that up here and go back and kind of curve that in. I'm going about 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 squares down, and then I'm going to kind of curve around. We're making like a teardrop thing, and this almost looks like that claw or that horn that we created already. So that's kind of a big teardrop. Same principle as the claw or the horn. If you're drawing a claw, you can maybe do it that way. Alright. He's kind of crouched over. And at this point, I really don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of him. So you may be ahead of me if you've seen the whole video already. Alright, now what I'm drawing here is just the division of the coloring of the cat. This would be kind of a lighter color in here, where this would be the dark color. I'm just kind of followed right along, and take it right about here. It joins the front. That's nothing more than where, if you've ever seen other cartoon cats, the belly always tends to have like a lighter color, mostly white. Like Sylvester, he's all black except for a white belly. Alright, so this is 6 squares high, and approximately, let's see, three and a half wide. Alright, so just kind of notice the proportions here. If you're following along, you can always just do something different, or just watch. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to. And from here, let's draw a tail, and that tail's gonna start close to the bottom, maybe right about there. You don't want to get too low, or it's going to look like it's not a tail, it's going to look like it's something different. So maybe right about there. And the tail's probably going to come up close to eye level. Now I'm not drawing this particular curve with any specific intention. I'm just going to see if it looks good. Oops. Undo. Okay, I kind of like that better. As you're curving upwards, when you get to almost neck level, he's going to curve right back out, right about there. And then I'm going to... Actually, you know what? I don't really care for the angle that's coming in at the body. So... back to your pencil, and maybe just, yeah, that's better. That didn't quite look right like that, so come back up towards the body. Looks like it's more realistic connection. And then, now the top of the tail is going to be a little bit skinnier than the bottom of the tail, so you might want to just start from that point, and as you go down, just kind of add a little more space between the two lines as you're getting closer to the body, and you get, a tapering effect. From the body, it tapers to the point. And I always tend to like maybe separate a little bit of color up here. It would be like maybe white, where this might be orange. To your eraser and erase part of that. The only reason I'm erasing part of that is because I want that kind of overlap effect right there. So because that tail is going to have kind of a circular quality to it. If I draw contour lines around the tail, you can see where this would be closer to us than it would be here. It's kind of bulging out. So being that this is closer to us, it kind of meets the body right there, and the body tapers over it right there. So we can undo those lines. Alright, but being that this is a devil cat, what I want to do is kind of give the end of the tail that kind of arrow kind of thingy going on, like a devil, like you'd expect from a devil. So maybe just come right about here and just taper out, and then taper out right there. So it's kind of spreading out from the shape of the tail, and just maybe come right back in like so. And this doesn't work for me right now, so after drawing that, so let's just go and kind of undo that. Maybe erase some of that right in there, and then you've got some connectivity right there. You get that same tapering thing. That makes any sense to you?